welcome to Wednesday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, one of the most remarkably weird puzzles I have ever seen on the channel. This is called Trust Me, I'm Lying by ChefOfDeath, and the reason it is so replete, it seems, with information is because all of the information it's giving us is wrong. It's a Roggen puzzle. It's got a lot of misleading clues. I've read the rules. It took me a long time to read them. And basically everything you see here is telling you a lie. So normally you'd think of a grey circle as being an odd digit. Well, here it's not. It's an even digit. So I've got no idea what's going on here. I don't think we've done a ChefOfDeath puzzle before. So I have no real knowledge of how difficult this is, except that I can tell you that it seems like it might be very, very hard, judging by the rule set. But you will be able to judge it a little bit better than me by looking at the length of the video, assuming I've been able to solve it at all. I'll read you the rules in just a moment or two. Couple of things to mention first. I'm going to firstly say thank you. Those who watched all of yesterday's video will have noticed that about halfway through it I started rambling about my or one of the ideas I'd had before Mark and I started Cracking the Cryptic, which was to make a Twitter account called The Man Who Said in which basically a man, you wouldn't ever see the man, but he would open a newspaper article every day, and you sort of be looking over the shoulder, and he would simply respond to the article by saying or in a variety of ways, which I thought was absolutely hilarious and would get an enormous following and make me a rich man. Mark poo-pooed that idea as absolutely ridiculously stupid, so I never did it. But I'm starting to think, based off the feedback from yesterday's video, that it really could be a thing. So I really need to get off my backside and create the man who says whom. Perhaps, at least. We'll see. Anyway, apart from the man who says what else is going on? Well, Domino Sudoku is out on the App Store. This is our new app. In fact, everyone really should download the new app because it's got 7 free puzzles in it by Prasanna Seshadri, completely free, showcasing our existing apps. So there's a Miracle Sudoku, a Thermo Sudoku, a Killer Sudoku, etc. Definitely worth checking out. And what you can do is, once you've got that app, you can download Domino Sudoku, which is our brand new creation. It's been about a year in the making, and that features puzzles by Fistamafel, by Codec, by Clover, by Jovial, by Sam Kappelman-Lynes, by Mark and me as well, by Richard Stolk, by Prasanna again. So basically it's full, it's replete. Christoph Seeliger, it's full of world-class puzzles, and the feedback so far has been tremendous, so I really would recommend that to you if you've not checked it out already. Now, other than that, many more of you have managed to solve Joseph Neymer's Sudoku hunt, which is available over on Patreon right now. It's an equal sum lines hunt. Equal sum lines is probably my favourite of all the new rule sets we've seen in Sudoku over the last 6 to 9 months. And Joseph's created a suite of puzzles, 13 in all. You have to solve 12, and then you have to use those 12 to solve the 13th. And loads of you have managed to do it, which is, I think, very, very commendable. So very well done to Chris Renahan, Tobias Binder, Full Deck and Missing a Few Cards, Maho Belder, Matt Hall, Genevieve Dufour, Trevor Patton, Caleb Morgan, Bartosz Stanio, I'm almost certainly saying that wrong, I'm so sorry if I am, Chris Mears, Andreas Schaefer, Michael Fish, and Kavita Jagannathan, all of you correct, very well done. And if you haven't tried the puzzles yet, do have a go. You've still got a week to send them to us and be with a chance of winning the competition and getting a shout out. So definitely a good way to spend your puzzling time. No birthdays to tell you about today, so why don't we get on with the rules. What I must apologise for, by the way, I've been sitting here reading the news for about the last half an hour, hoping that Maverick would cease his incessant flying past my window. It is an absolutely roasting hot day here, and I've closed the window in order to reduce the aeroplane noise, which has been absurd today so far, so I'm very sorry if it annoys you. But there's nothing I can do about it without an anti-aircraft gun, and I'd probably get into trouble if I did use that. So here we go. What are the rules of Trust Me, I'm Lying by ChefOfDeath? They are as follows. Normal Sudoku rules apply. Digits in a grey square must not be even. Digits in a grey circle must not be odd. Digits on a thermo must decrease from the bulb end. So we've got some thermos in the grid. They've all got to decrease. So if that was a 3, that would have to be a 2 or a 1. Digits on either side of a white dot must not have a difference of 1. Okay, so these cells are not consecutive. Those cells are not consecutive. Digits connected by an X must not sum to 10, so these don't sum to 10. Digits connected by a V must not sum to 5. Can't see any. Oh, there are some. There's a V there. Those must not sum to 5. So if that was 1, that cannot be 4. Right, hang on, let me find the next place in the rules. Digits on a purple line must not all be consecutive. Digits on a purple line must not all be consecutive. Oh, so some of them can be consecutive, but not all of them. So those 3 digits there, they can't be 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3 in that order, because these would be a consecutive set. What they could be is 1, 2, 9, I think. I think that's what that means, because although 1 and 2 are consecutive, all 3 are not consecutive. Adjacent digits on a green line must not differ by 5 or more. Okay, so these green lines, normally they'd be German whispers lines, and we'd have to go 5 different at least between adjacent digits. Here we must have less than 5. So if this was a 1, this would have to be a 2, 3, 4, or 5, I suppose. 5 would work, would it? 1, 5. Yeah, that's differing by 4, which is less than 5. There is a knowledge bomb for you. So that's how green lines work. 2 more rules. Digits in a minimum cell must not be smaller than any of the orthogonally connected cells. Right, so these are the ones with the inequalities, are they? They all seem to appear in the same position in their boxes, look. So what we're saying here is that they must not be smaller. So they've got to be greater. Right, so this digit here has to be greater than all its orthogonal neighbours. So it couldn't be a 1, because then you'd have to put 0 into all of those, and that would be plain silly. So don't put 1s in those cells. Digits in a cage must not sum to the given total, which is always 39, and that's absolutely bonkers. In fact, no, we'll get onto this when we start solving it, but there does seem to be a certain regularity in what's going on in all of these boxes. We shall have to see what that means. Do have a go at the puzzle. The way to play is to click the link under the video as usual. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. Yeah, what I was just going to say is that obviously there is an awful lot of regularity in every single box, in every single 3x3 box. It looks like the top left cell is a square. It looks like the bottom middle cell is a circle. It looks like there's a sort of same shaped Renban, but the symmetry is not perfect, or the equivalence is not perfect. This box has a V in it. That box has a V in it, and there don't seem to be V's in all the boxes. There don't seem to be green lines in all the boxes. There is always a left-sided 2-cell thermo, which is a liar, with an X on it. Look, that exists in every single box. And there's always a minimum cell in every single box. What on earth do you do here then? I suppose, well, actually, I say that, but this is slightly better than some Roggen puzzles I've done in the past, in the sense that I can say immediately something about the cells that are marked with grey squares and grey circles. Because these are lying, normally a grey square cell would be an even digit. In this, it must not be an even digit. So we could say immediately those cells have to be odd, and that cell has to be even. Now, yes, and that cell has to be even. Because it's a grey circle, which cannot be odd. Now, what else can we say? We can say that... hang on a minute. What else can we say? We can say... Okay, now I can actually say something about this digit, can't I? Because that's even. But it can't be 6 because of the secret. Now, that begs the question for some of you, what is the secret? Well, the secret is something I only tell my favourite people. But if you're watching this video, if you've got to this point, if you've got through all of the drivel about the man who says you're definitely one of my favourite people. And the secret is that any complete box of a Sudoku, if it's correctly completed, will have the digits 1 to 9 in it once each. So if you add up all those digits, you get 45. So this box, even though all the clues in it are telling lies, it will add up to 45 at the end of the day. Now, if I was to put a 6 there, these digits, because of maths, because these will have to be the digits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, will add up to 45 because of the, well, they will add up to 39 because of the secret, to make sure the box overall adds up to 45. And so that is impossible, because it would correctify the count for the cage. So that is not a 6, which means it's a 2, 4 or an 8, because it's got to be even, because it's in a grey circle. And the strangest thing about that is that that then propagates round the grid and gets me another 8 pencil marks into those corner cells, 2, 4 and 8. So I've now got 2, 4, 8 triples in rows 1, 4, 7, columns 3, 6, 9, which must be deliberate on the part of ChefOfDeath when he was cooking up this this gibberish here. Right. Okay, so now I'm going to say something else that I can see that results from that. If there is an 8 in one of those cells, and there is, the cell that's next to it, look, if that's an 8, I'm being very inarticulate here, but if that's an 8, we know that that cell is sort of an anti-minimum cell, which means, if you're used to Sudoku nomenclature, you may have come across fortress cells before. Now, fortress cells have to be greater than all their orthogonal neighbours, and that is effectively what this cell has become. It's become a fortress cell. So if this was 8, that has to be 9. And the weird thing about that is that that yields a swordfish on lines, because we know one of these is an 8, we therefore know one of these is a 9. And if we know one of those is a 9, let's make those orange. Because we know one of those is a 9, well, we've got the same thing going on in this row. One of those is a 9, because one of these is an 8. And then in this row, we've got the same thing. One of those is an 8, so one of these is a 9 to make the fortress cell work. And that is a swordfish. What do I mean by a swordfish? I mean, it's a pattern that occurs in Sudoku. You often find it in decent classic Sudokus. You sometimes find it in variant Sudokus, but only in the very good ones, in my opinion. So this pattern, the way to appreciate the effect of these orange cells is to note that in this row there is a 9 in one of 3 positions, one of the orange squares. In this row there is a 9 in one of 3 positions, and in this row there is a 9 in one of these positions. Now, the key question you have to ask yourself where you find this relationship is to actually look at the columns. So although the 9s are restricted in the rows, I want to look at the columns here, and I want to ask a silly question, it seems, but it's important. How many 1s are you anticipating there being in the correct solution to this puzzle in column 2? I'm not going to do this Agad Matel style and give you a while to answer, because it's not a very difficult question. Hopefully you all said 1, 9. That would be the correct answer. The correct solution to this puzzle will have 1, 9 in column 2. It will have another 9, only a single 9 in column 5, and it will have 1, 9 in column 8. So that means that in these columns altogether, there are 3 9s. But we just said when we started this that these orange cells contain 3 9s, because we said there was 1 9 in there, in that row, there's 1 9 in there, and there's 1 9 in there. So in these columns, the orange cells contain 3 9s altogether. So let me ask you, could that be a 9? Well, clearly not, because if that is a 9, it is a 4th 9 in these 3 columns, because there are 3 9s in the orange. And you can't put 4 9s in 3 columns of Sudoku without repeating a 9 in one of those columns, so it would be wrong. So actually, what we can now do, using the orange cells, is knock 9s out of all these cells. So none of those blue cells there can now be a 9. Now, does that mean anything? Now, 9 is odd. I'm trying to do this slowly. 9 is odd. Oh, so 9. Oh. Okay, hang on. Yeah, okay. So better question, actually, is... In fact, this is weird. Maybe I could have done this without thinking about the swordfish. I'm now feeling a bit embarrassed for myself. Where does the 9 go in column 1? Now, because we know 9 in row 1 is in one of those positions, that cannot be a 9. So that's effectively blue. Now, these thermos work the wrong way round, don't they? So I could never put 9 in the tip, because then the thermo will increase from the bulb and be a normal thermo, where it's got to be a lying thermo. So that can never be a 9. So that means in this column, isn't it true to say that the 9 always, therefore, has to go into one of those cells? So actually, that's another, in effect, it's another swordfish on 9s, but this time in the columns. So let's label that with a different colour then, just to make sure everyone's understanding it. Let's get rid of blue and think about this. So these yellow cells now are the limited positions for 9s in columns 1, 4 and 7. Now this means yes, okay, so the swordfish is helpful. The swordfish is helpful. Let's now think, though, about what's the effect of this yellow swordfish we found in the columns. So it's exactly the same logic as we did with the orange 9s. We just have to ask the right question. So this time the question is not about the columns. The question is about the rows. And in these 3 rows, we know there will be 3 9s, but we know the yellow squares contain 3 9s. So what we can't do is add any more 9s into these cells. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to blue all the cells throughout the grid that cannot be 9s. So remember when we did the swordfish on orange, we managed to lock 9s out of all of these cells. So those all turned blue. In this row, none of those can be 9s because the 9s are definitely in the orange. In this column, none of these can be 9s because we've got these 9s in yellow, which are effectively forming a triple. So we can effectively bluify all of these, I think. And now if we study what's left in these boxes, 2, 4 and 8 obviously are not 9. There's a knowledge bomb for you again. So the only place left for 9s, yeah, the way to think about this is, where does 9 go in column 3? Well, it's got to go in one of those 3 cells, making yet another swordfish. So those are a final swordfish on 9s. So now let's get rid of all the blues and have a stare at this. We've actually now located... Each swordfish accounts for 3 9s. So each of our coloured swordfishes accounts for 3 9s in the grid. And we've got 3 swordfishes, so all the 9s are now effectively dealt with. Now, what we don't know, of course, is how these 9s are disposed. So we don't know if this is a 9, or this is a 9, or this is a 9. We just know one of these yellows is a 9. So what does that mean? Does that mean something helpful? I don't know immediately, I'm afraid. I'm sure it means something. It's certainly very interesting. Okay, so how do we make more progress then? So probably what we've got to do is to find another digit that's somehow weak within this box. And if it's weak within this box, it's obviously going to be weak within every box, because all the boxes are in effect the same. Yes, I've got it. Right, okay. So now in fact, I'm not going to do box logic, I'm going to do row logic. Where is 1 in row 1? That's quite an interesting question, because it cannot go in the minimum cells, because it needs to be greater. These cells are anti-minimum. So if we put 1 in here, we've got to put 0 in all of the orthogonal neighbours. So in row 1, there is a swordfish on 1s in these cells, and in row 4, and in row 7. This is almost a troll puzzle, I think. It's almost comedy. So I've now got... Okay, so if I've got a swordfish on 1s... Actually, what I might do now is lose the swordfish colours, because these are going to get really confusing. I'm going to leave the pencil mark cornered cells in, because what I wanted to do was, once I've got a swordfish in the rows on 1s, we can of course limit where 1 can go in the columns and remove 1s from all of those cells. So 1s can never be on a thermo anymore. Yes, this is straightforward now. Well, when I say straightforward, I'm being slightly facetious. But now I'm going to ask exactly the same question. Where does the 1 go in row 3? Because from the swordfish, we've worked out the 1 can't go in a blue cell. Now 1 is an odd digit, therefore it cannot go in a grey circle, because grey circles in this puzzle are even digits. So the 1, doesn't it have to go therefore in this row in the corner cells? And that applies throughout the puzzle, because the puzzle is the same in every box. So now I've got a swordfish on 1s in those cells. So now, yeah, so now it's just Sudoku basically, isn't it? I just combine the effects of these swordfishes to ask where it's like, well, let's look at box 1. Well, no, the way to do this, in fact, is to be a bit more diligent about it. I will do it slowly, just to make sure everyone understands. So I've worked out that in this row there is a swordfish on 1s. Therefore, there is a restriction on 1s in the columns. We can't now have 1s in any of these cells, using exactly the same swordfish logic we've been discussing. So none of those cells can now be 1s as a result of that. So now let's ask where 1 goes in row 2 of the grid. And the answer, if you look carefully, because of the blue cells, is it's got to go in one of those 3 positions in row 2, one of these 3 positions in row 5, and one of these 3 positions in row 8, which means we've got a 3rd swordfish now on, you've guessed it, on 1s. So now we've not only got 3 swordfishes on 9s, we've got 3 swordfishes on 1s, effectively placing all of our 1s and 9s in the grid. So now all we've got to do, I think, is keep doing this logic, and we should hopefully solve the puzzle. So what's the next weak digit then? Is it 2 or is it 8? I'm thinking it's going to be an extreme digit. Let me think about that. Although actually, I'm going to change my mind. I'm actually going to ask about 3s, I think, first. Because can't I just do exactly the same logic on 3s I've just done on 1 in row 1? Because if I put 3 in the minimum cell, that means I've got to have 3 orthogonal neighbours that are below 3, and there are only 2 Sudoku digits that are below 3, so that won't work. So 3 in row 1 is a swordfish on exactly the same cells that the 1 is. Now that, we've already looked at this, leads to a restriction on 3's ability to appear in these positions, in columns 1, 4 and 7. And 3, it's exactly the same, it's identical logic. So now I'm going to ask where 3 goes in row 3. It cannot be in a grey circle, because grey circles in this puzzle are even digits, so it's got to go in those cells. So it's got to go here, 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 creating another swordfish on 3's, and then we do exactly the same logic we've just done in row 2, row 5 and row 8, and we find that 3 must go in the centre. So 3's are very profitable. Like that. Let's get rid of the bluenesses and think again. So I sort of elided over 2 there, didn't I? I missed out 2 because I could see something quickly on 3. But it's less good on 2 because 2 obviously is in one of those cells, so I can't rule it out of these cells. Now, can you put... You can put 4. I can put 4 in the max cell because I could surround that with 1, 2, 3. And that might work. So maybe I run out of room here to make clever observations, or at least relatively clever observations. Oh dear. Okay, I know what I can do that's simple again though. I keep iterating stuff on row 1 because that's where I'm looking. But let's try 6 in row 1. Where's that going? Now the thing about 6, you may not know this, but it's an even digit. So if it's an even digit, it can't go on a grey square in this puzzle. So where does it go in row 1? Well, it's got to go in the 9 cells, doesn't it? Which of course that propagates logically down row 4 and row 7 to give us, you've guessed it, a swordfish on 6's in the rows. So that's limiting the ability of 6's to appear in the columns in these positions, which means that now 6 is even. Can't believe it's like my brain has been miswired trying to solve this puzzle. 6 is even, so 6 cannot go here, can it? Because that's a grey square which is lying to us, which is therefore an odd digit in this puzzle. So now the question we ask is, where does 3 go in row 3? And it's thrown into the bulbs. So it's almost like we're getting the same cells for 6's that we were getting for 9's, because now we've got a swordfish on 6's in the rows, which means that we can eliminate 6's from the columns. So from these cells, let's actually put this in case it reveals magic to us immediately. So now, so now it's straightforward. Again, we now look at row 2 and we say, where does 6 go? And because it can't go in a blue cell, it does map exactly onto the positions of 9's. Good grief. There we go. Sorry, that was Mark on the phone. I can't believe he interrupted me then. But we were getting somewhere, weren't we? We just worked out the final swordfish on 6s. And that is rather magnificent. So let me just unwind this. Okay, what did we do? Oh, I see. We just coloured it in order to get our 6s. So what we should do now probably is get rid of our blues and take stock of where we're up to. So we're up to the point where we now know about 1s, 3s, 6s and 9s, and we don't know anything about 5s and 7s, but we know a little bit about 2s, 4s and 8s, which suggests to me that we should be able to do something with, well, 2s or 8s are probably more restricted than the other digits, aren't they? So let's think about those. We could argue about where can 2s, 4s and 8s not go? They can't go in those cells because there's sort of this triplicated logic, isn't there? There's a 2, 4, 8 triple in row 1, 4 and 7 and a 2, 4, 8 triple in columns 9, 6 and 3. So we can immediately rule out 2s, 4s and 8s from those squares, which means that whatever this isn't, so if that's a 2, we have to put 4 and 8 in there. Okay, no, let's take the low-hanging fruit first. Let's take the low-hanging fruit. Now, we have approximately, and in fact we can get rid of this blue English, we don't need it at all. What we've done is 6s. We know about 6s. We know there are 3 swordfishes on 6s in the puzzle. So, but we also know that's an even digit because it's a grey circle. So what is it? Well, it can't be 6. So that's got to be a 2, 4 or 8. And that, of course, propagates throughout the grid and gives us another load of 2, 4, 8 triples. And that means that, oh, maybe I now restore my bluage. Yeah, well, I don't really need to. Yeah, look at box 1 and let's ask where the other digit of 2, 4 and 8 goes. Now, because of this 2, 4, 8 triple, it can't go in those cells or these cells because of the 2, 4, 8 triple in column 3. So it's not in those. It's not obviously in these cells. We're looking for where the other one goes. It's not here because there's a 2, 4, 8 triple in row 3. And it's not here because there's a 2, 4, 8 triple in column 3. So the only other place for the 2, 4, 8 is there. And that means that we can 2, 4, 8ify all of these digits, which is lovely. So that gives us 2, 4, 8 here. We can get rid of, oh, hang on, I want to get rid of the blue. And now, so now I've got 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 6s, 8s and 9s done. So I've only got to place 5s and 7s in the grid. So now the question is, which one of those is more restricted? I want to say 7 because it's nearer to an extreme. And I don't really want to use, well, it might be a point where we have to start thinking about the asymmetries in the boxes. Hang on a minute, let me think about this. So what have we used and what haven't we used? In terms of symmetries, I know what I've not used. I've not used any of the x's. So what do the x's do? So the x's are telling us that, right, that's interesting. So the x is obviously removing the ability of a domino to add up to 10. But this cell, if we look at this cell in box 1, it's the same obviously for all the boxes. That cell cannot be a 2 or an 8 because the 2, 4, 8 triple is in those 3 cells. So that never, this x never affects the ability of this thermo to have 2 and 8 on it. because it could never have 2 or 8 on it. So the only way it can affect it is it's saying that if this is a 6, this cannot be a 4. If this is a 6, this cannot be a 4. Ah, but what's that doing then? I mean, I do know one of these is a 6, but again, I don't know which one it is. That's really strange. Okay, I'm not sure I understand about the X's. The other clues, well, there's 2 other clues I think that appear in every box that I've not used. I've not used the fact that these cells are always consecutive, well, always not consecutive. So, but these two, well, the problem is these options are 2, 4 and 8. So if they were closer together, it might be quite persuasive that, in terms of limiting the middle cells of each box. I've not used the Ren bands either. So the Ren bands are telling us that I can't put consecutive digits. Ah, okay. Right. So remember, one of these digits is an 8. That's obviously true. And we know that 8 has to be next to 9 on the minimum cell, because the minimum cell needs to be greater than the 8. So there is an 8-9 pair. So you can't put... Oh, no, hang on. This is really... No, I don't think this is right. I was going to say, wherever the 8-9 pair goes, imagine it was in box 1. You can't put 7 there, and that's true, but it's not very useful. It's true, but it only applies in that specific instance. It only applies where you have got the 8-9 pair on the Renban, which needn't be in box 1. So all I'm in effect doing is limiting 7 from the middle cell of one of these 3 boxes, which is not very helpful. Although, having said that, 7 in that position is quite potent, isn't it? Because that can't be 8. Hang on. So if you put 7 in the middle of a box, that cell has to be greater than 7 but cannot be 8 because of the 2, 4, 8 triple. So that always isn't. So whenever you have 7 in the middle of a box, you have to have 9 above it, which means that has to be... No, that cannot be 8. That cannot be 8. Ah, right, got it. Right. Oh, this is lovely. This is important. Right, I want to look at the ability to put 7 into any box in this puzzle in its middle cell. Let's look at that. Can that be 7? The answer, I think, is no. And it's for a very, very peculiar reason. So let's think about this. If this is 7, can this be 8? No. And it couldn't be 8 in any box because there's always a vertical domino. Now, if this is 7, because this is a minimum cell and needs to be greater than 7 but cannot be 8, this is always 9. But that means that this cannot be 8 either. So in this box now, neither of these 2 cells can be the 8. So the 8 has to go there, which is on a broken thermo. So what does this digit have to be in order to make this thermo decrease? It has to be 9, and you get 2 9s in the box. So that's wrong in a good way, because now we can turn our attention to 7 in column 2 and say, where does it go? And the answer is not in the 2, 4, 8 triple, they won't work, and not in the central cells, because they don't work. So there is a 7 in those positions, which then propagates through the grid, which then gives us a very unusual little creature indeed, which is 3 overlapping swordfishes on 7s, 6s and 9s. Yeah, so look at our swordfish notation, which is what the corner pencil marks are indicating. You can see that in these cells, let me just highlight them for a moment, we have 3 overlapping swordfishes on 6s, 7s and 9s. And what that's telling us is that in one of these 3 cells there has to be a 6, because that's what we've just worked out. Well, I mean, I think we were applying it in the column, but it doesn't matter. One of those 3 cells has to be a, well, no, actually, was it 6 we were looking at or 7? I'm now confusing myself. But the point is that because we have to dispose these 3 digits amongst these 3 specific cells in the columns and all the rows, we can look at it either way, they must actually be a triple. 3 overlapping swordfishes, like 2 overlapping X-wings, causes pairs in both of the X-wing cells. 3 overlapping swordfishes causes these cells to be, you've guessed it, a 6, 7, 9 triple. Now, what does that mean, is the next question. Does it mean anything good? Does it mean anything good? It means that cell in the corner can only be 1, 3 or 5 now. Oh, it does mean something. It means something really simple, actually. I'm now going to ask where 7 goes in column 1. And 7 in column 1 cannot go here anymore because it's a 6, 7, 9 triple. So 7 in column 1 has to go here because it can't be a 2, 4 or 8. And that means we've got another overlapping swordfish on 6, 7s and 9s, this time in the bulbs. So this is now a 6, 7, 9 triple, which means that, and presumably then, we can just, yeah, now we can ask where 6, 7 and 9 go in column 3. They can't go here and they can't go there, so they've got to go in the middle cells. And you've guessed it, what does that mean? We've got a 6, 7, 9 triple there. So we've now got 6, we've got 2, 4, 8 triples, 6, 7, 9 triples, which means that the diagonals, look, have got to be 1, 3, 5 triples in each box. And all of a sudden, we have, I don't know what the right expression is, swordfishified the grid, but that's what we've done. We've effectively swordfishified the grid. And actually, let's get rid of my colours. And so now the challenge is probably going to be, I've still not used the X's. That's really weird. But I was just thinking, what we've got to do now is to use the clues that are asymmetrical to somehow disambiguate this gibberish that we found. And the way we will do that is how do we do that? No, I thought it might be the V. But the V could eliminate certain possibilities, but it doesn't eliminate, it doesn't stop that being a 5. If we knew this was a low digit, then it would help. Bobbins, I suddenly thought 5 on the German Whisper can't go on a German Whisper, but of course it can go on the German Whisper in the nonsense puzzle that we've got going on here. But you can't put 1 on that. Yes, okay, so let's look at the German Whispers, because, yeah, the way these whispers work is they're anti-whispers, which means that the gap has to be a maximum of 4. If I put 1 there, that's going to be at least a 6. That's a gap of 5. That doesn't work. So that cannot be a 1. And that's going to obviously propagate for every single one of these whispers. And now I've got a digit. That's got to be a 1. I've got a 3, 5 pair in the bottom row, so that's a 1. In fact, I've got a 1 here. Oh, it's weird. So although these are asymmetrical, there are 2 of them. they're sort of arranged in a sort of swordfishy pattern. So I end up getting the ones here. And now, look, I can do eliminations using this. I can eliminate ones from these diagonal cells. So I've now... Ah, yeah, okay. And now look. Oh, this can't be by accident. Every single one of the ones I've just got is on a V clue, where obviously now that V clue must be rendered incorrect. So we've got to get rid of 4s in there. Okay, what's that doing? It's not. I thought it was going to be doing something clever with the white dot, but it's not really. Because eliminating 4 from here doesn't tell me whether this is 3 or 5. That's weird. Sorry. I know that some of you are probably shouting at me here about... I'm sure this means something very obvious. I just don't see what it is. Come on, Simon. So 4 is now in one of those two cells. 4 is in the lot. It's not really done anything. It must have done. What has it done to get rid of 4 from this square? What's the relationship between those two squares? That one's got to be bigger than that. Wow, so if that was 8, that would have to be 9. If that's 8, that's 9. So if that's 8, that's 9. And then that's 8, because we know that the 9 in the rows goes next to the 8. So we get 2 8s there, and we get an 8 here on the thermo, which needs to break. So that would be a 9. So we get 9 here, 9 here, 9 here. I don't know, that doesn't feel... I don't feel I'm doing anything terribly clever there. I don't think that's probably what we've got to focus on. So, okay. So, if it's not the 1s and it's not the fact these can't be 4s, what is it? It's either these x's again. What other symmetry is broken? We've got... here's something. Right, look at that cell. That cell can't be a 3. Because if it's a 3, one of these cells is a 2 or a 4 and will be consecutive with it. So where you've got a double white dottedness, you can't put 3 in the middle. Which might be interesting. So double white dottedness can't have 3 in the middle. Double white dottedness can't have 3 in the middle. So 3 in those boxes is shunted into one of those two cells. It's very easy for it to be here because that's making this one's job very simple. If the 3 is here, if the 3 is there, this has to not be 9. Okay, I don't know what that means. Right, the other thing that's telling me actually is that this is not a 2-4 pair. Because if that's a 2-4 pair, it will be consecutive with whatever this turns out to be. If that's 1 or 5, which it is, and this is a 2-4 pair, that will be a problem because of the double white dots. So that means one of those is an 8, which means that's not an 8. And that logic obviously applies everywhere we've got a 1-5 in these positions. We have to put 8s in one of those, no 8 here. We've got to put 8s in one of these, no 8 here. So now, no 8 here means this is now 2 or 4. So that's no longer able to be 9, is it? Because we know that wherever the 8 goes in the top row, whichever one of these 3 digits was the 8, it has the 9 on its left. So if we wasted the 9 dealing with a 2 or a 4, wherever the 8 went would have no possible accompanying cell on its left-hand side. So that's not 9. So this is 6 or 7. It does nothing. Hang on, does that logic must apply everywhere as well? So let's make sure that we copy it down the grid in case that's going to matter. And that means that, oh goodness me, how is this? It's done nothing. Oh, I've got it. I've got it. I've got it. I think I have got it. Yes, I have got it. I've got it. That can't be 8. If that's 8, it's bigger than that. So that's got to be 2. And that's another digit. That's right, isn't it? Let me just think about that. That is, yes, this is a minimum. It's an anti-minimum cell. So it's got to be bigger than its neighbours. Yes, that's got to be 2. So this is 2. So that's not 2, and 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 that's not 2, nori nori. And that logic, has that done anything more than that? Yeah, oh yes, of course it has. Of course it has, sorry. And now I've just used the white dot there. That can't be a 3 now, so that's got to be 5. That's got to be 3. So that's going to do more stuff. 3s come out of there, there, and there. It'd be very easy to miss it. Oh, look, that's a 1 now. So that's a 3. So that's a 5, and that's a 1. Oh my goodness me. Is this it? Is this the way we break into the puzzle? 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. Yeah. 1, 5, 3, 5. We're getting all the 1s, 3s, and 5s, I think. That's a 1. That's got to be 3. That's got to be 5. That's got to be 3. That's got to be 1. That's got to be 5. That's got to be 3. How many have I got? All of them. Dum 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 dum. No, not that one. Not that one. Right. I've done all the 1s, 3s, and 5s now. And that can't be consecutive with 4. 3 can't be consecutive. That's got to be 8. Which means these aren't 8, which means that I've got a 2, 4 pair in the top row. That becomes 8, which we know is next to 9. So now we can do even more stuff. Look, we can get rid of 9, 9, 9. Okay, now, oh goodness, there's all sorts going on now. This 3 here can't be next to 2 or 4 on its white dot, so that's got to be an 8 straight off the bat. That forces this to be a 2. So that's a 4 by Sudoku. That's a 2. That's an 8. I'm not sure. I don't think I'm doing this very inefficiently, but I'm just trying to pick off digits as I see them. We can get rid of some stuff here. Look, we've got a 4 here now. We've got a 2 here. We've got a 2 here. We've got a 4 here by Sudoku, so that's become an 8. That's become a 2. That's become a 4. That's become an 8. So that's become a 4. That's become an 8. Have I done all the 2s? No, I haven't done all of them. I think I should be able to do it, all of them. It feels like, yeah, it feels like this is, you know, the 2s, 4s, 8s are sort of a discrete set of things that we should be able to finish. 2 there, 2, 8 means that's a 4. So I should just be left in every box with 6, 7s and 9s. I'm not quite there yet. Okay, so now I'm there. So how do we do this bit? So, oh, I know. The 8's got to be next to the 9 on the minimum cell. Is that doing enough? It might. Yes, let's give me another digit there. I know what it is. I know what it is. I've just realised. I was looking down here and I saw the 4. So the actual... These naughty X's actually only come into play at the very end to stop this being a 6, because that would add up to 10. So that's giving us a 7 and a 6 here. Oh, maybe it's not quite enough, but I think it's doing something. Same thing here. That's got to be not a 6 now. And there's a 9 here, so that's got to be 7. Therefore, that's the 6. That's not 7 anymore. That's not 6. Okay, is that as far as we can take that logic? It might be. No, I've got another one here. So this has got to be 7. That's got to be 6. Which means that's not 7. It means that's not 7. It means that... Oh no, imagine if I get stuck now. That would be awful. It would just be awful. That's a 9, so that's not 9 there. So I've got 6 7s and... Okay. I've got a variety of things here to think about. Oh, I see. Right, now we come back to the whispers, do we? 3 has to be quite close to its next digit. If this was 3, 9, it would be 6 apart, which is a correct whisper. So that's 7, which means that's 6 and that's 9. And that, I think, might finish the puzzle. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. That's now 7. That's 6. That's 9. That's 6. That's 7. That's 9. That's 7. That's 6. That's 9. That's 6. That's 7. Oh, please. Oh, no, hang on. That's going to be... No, oh no, oh no, I have made an error. I've made an error. I'm so sorry. Right, what did I do wrong? Was it a misclick or was it just been in utter ineptitude? It could have been a misclick, actually. Let me just... Yeah, hang on. This still looks like it works to me. I think I might just have put the wrong digit in there. Yeah, brilliant. What a brilliant, brilliant puzzle that is. My goodness me, ChefOfDeath, what a debut. Stunning, absolutely stunning. Stunning and weird. Weird as anything. The whole idea that you could limit these boxes and the logic in them because they were all the same was fascinating. It's just, that is a memorable puzzle, actually. I'm going to remember that one for a long time. Loved it. Let me know in the comments how you got on with it. I'd be fascinated to hear. I thought that was brilliant. And we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.